Hello, this is Miss Dagenford, and I wanted to tell you about how plants regulate their growth and their metabolic functions. And there are some similarities. They do it through chemicals, they do it through plant hormones. And you've heard of hormones before in humans, estrogen, testosterone, maybe you've even heard of cortisol, the stress hormone. But one thing that hormones all have in common is that hormones are made in one part of the body in terms of humans, and then they are sent to another part of the body where they will affect a target tissue or a target gland. So, for instance, your adrenal gland makes cortisone or cortisol, which will affect your nervous system, your muscles, your liver, and even your blood vessels. And so they're made in one area, they're sent out, and then they're affecting other areas. Now, plant hormones are going to operate in a similar fashion. They're made in one part of the plant, but they're not distributed by blood or by any other means like we would think of. They often diffuse or are actively transported to another part of the plant. And what they're going to do there is either stimulate or suppress an activity. Some hormones, like gibberellins, and these can have some crazy names based upon who discovered them or who gave them the name. So gibberellins are plant hormones that cause a dramatic increase in size of the plant. In fact, this was first discovered because there was a disease where a plant was infected by a fungus which produced a gibberellin like hormone. And what it would do, the disease was commonly known as foolish seedling disease, because what the gibberellins would do is cause the plant to just grow out of control until they would just topple over and die. And so those were foolish seedlings. And so it causes the plant to just burst and grow. It can also be involved in causing the seed to stop being dormant and germinate. Now, there has to be the right signals, right? Water and temperature have to be right. But once those are right, then the gibberellins tell the seed to start germinating. And you'll see in one of the examples in the video that we use them to actually increase fruit size, because when the stems are longer, the fruit can get bigger. So that's one example. Another example would be ethylene. Now, ethylene is a gas. Ethylene is a gas that's produced by plants when they're ripening their fruit. And ethylene, ethylene, the effect of ethylene, because anybody who's brought in fruit from the store and maybe all the bananas are green, and then if you've ever wondered, oh my gosh, how did they all ripen at the same time? Like, suddenly you have one banana that's starting to ripen, and then the next day they're all ripe, and you got to eat them fast, right? Or else they're going to start going bad. And so plants will secrete ethylene, and that will be emitted by one plant, and then one fruit. Then the other fruit will receive that ethylene and ripen. And again, we can do this commercially by artificially spraying or not spraying fruit with ethylene until they get to their destination. A lot of people will kind of notice they don't necessarily taste as nice as like in your garden picking a ripe tomato. Versus a tomato that's ripened by exposing. It's just not quite as natural to the process. Cytokinins are another hormone, and just as the name implies, it stimulates cytokinesis. Now, I bet you need a quick review about that. Cytokinesis was the last stage in cell division where you had the cell that had divided its nucleus, and then the cytoplasm has to break apart. And so it's going to stimulate that cell division. Now, this so you get more cells with cytokinins. So we see these in growing parts of the plants, like the apical meristems, the roots, the stems, and in the developing fruit, where you need more cells. It's also going to be involved in growing the lateral branches, the side branches in bushes and trees, to help make the tree bushier, or the shrub thicker and wider and more branches. But by far the one that has the most um, interesting cellular responses and most well studied, and the earliest one studied, is going to be an auxin. Now, auxins, they have a very basic job. They cause the cell to get longer. And so you're going to see these in areas where the plant is actively growing. So the primary stem, that primary growth getting taller. And it's going to be involved in how we see the plant responding, the tropisms. Tropisms are movements of plants in response to specific stimuli. Um, for instance, phototropism or gravitropism, and you'll see this in the videos. Now, a quick review of a term you're going to hear. You're going to hear a term called coleoptile, and a coleoptile is a very young emerging plant tissue. It covers the stem, and these were one of the first experiments done with hormones. So when you hear that in the videos, just understand that, like, think a little plant emerging from the ground, and that's a coleoptile. So we've got our videos, and then you're gonna answer some questions about auxin and how they did the experiments on auxins, and then you're gonna have a chance to um, predict and review by making claims and explaining your reasoning for this. And then that will be it. Happy working today.